welcome back in live yet again. I think this is the first time I've ever done 2 live shows in a night. We'll see how it goes.
You've been busy. You've been busy, Dom.
Yeah, I'm feeling alive and awake as I've ever been because TJ, you were out there. Zach, you may have jumped in. I know he's jumped in the past. Like, baseball show was a lot of fun tonight. So shout out to everybody who came through, interacted with the comments, TJ being one of those. And obviously our, past basketball expert before Zach came on board. And then we all 3 did this at one point last year. It was a lot of fun, and we're going to do it again for y'all tonight. So looking forward to this with you from the first kick to the last pitch. We're going to fall in between those 2 categories with the basketball that's going to be tipping off tomorrow night. Zach got us some of the information we needed to get you guys some graphics and get up to speed. So Zach, we'll start off with you, man. First of all, how you doing? And are you excited to see this tournament tip off tomorrow night?
Yeah, I'm obviously I love Sunbelt basketball, so I'm just ready to watch it. Unfortunately, fortunately, Coastal doesn't play for a week, so that's good for me. So, but yeah, a little bit tired, but other than that, everything's well.
Nice. Well, we do have 2 Coastal fans. You know, the App State guy over here. I'm not sporting tonight. Actually, I guess I'm cheering on the Warhawks in the first game by default because
that's a tough pull. That's a tough pull this year.
I know, but I honestly was like, you know what? Let's throw them some love on the baseball show, and we don't really have a whole lot of time to change between the 2 shows. So the Warhawks stuff stays on tonight, and we're just going with it and rolling with it. It is a nice looking hat. I do like the insignia there. But TJ, another Coastal fan on the show with you, just threw up the hand gesture. What are you feeling like going into the tournament? And we'll get into, the tiebreak situation. I don't want you to dive into that just yet, but just like, how did the season go? Like from an outside perspective, big picture look.
I mean, if the tournament is anything like the way that the regular season ended, I cannot wait to watch some basketball this week. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers on this. This is a question you're going to have to ask Kyle Nashheim, one of our writers who just comes up with these ridiculous stats. But I would venture to guess that a 6-way tie for second place has probably never happened in this league in men's basketball. I mean, I would venture to say it's an unofficial statistic, fact checked by yours truly. In any way that there's no fact checking, but it was ultra competitive all the way down to the end. I think that, one of the things that I actually spoke to Commissioner Keith Gill about in the 2024 Final Four, we ran into each other. He's very invested in making Sunbelt basketball as premier of a brand in the G5 and the mid majors as football and baseball are. And I think with the change in the bracket and the way that it has been so uber competitive this year, I mean, these are tremendous steps in the right direction. And I think Sunbelt basketball is in a really good spot right now as it continues to grow.
Well, and he's in good position because he's also the head of the committee in general. So
yeah.
That is a good thing for the Sunbelt.
8 bids for the Sunbelt this year.
Yeah, there we go. That will be the day. But yeah, I mean, that is a good position for him to have. And yeah, maybe someday we'll get the benefit of the doubt because of that, but we'll see what happens in that aspect as we roll along here. Jumping over to, it would help if I, put the thing on here so that we can see what
beautiful logo right there. Don't Sleep Energy Phenom Elite, baby.
There we go.
2 sponsors.
Our 2 unofficial sponsors. As we continue to roll along here. But yeah, this is the tournament preview, but we're also going to talk about how we got here, some postseason awards, and we're going to go with ours, but some of them are the same, right, Zach?
Yeah, we talked about this the other day and then kind of in the messages that, I think several of our awards will be pretty similar.
Yeah, and I think rightfully so, honestly. Sometimes there's almost not much of a choice, right, when it's so obvious. But we did have some guys scoring at a pretty good pace here at the end of the season that made a couple of those things become in doubt a little bit. Okay, we have to talk about it. Here are the final standings. TJ, you alluded to it. I think I did too. We had 6 teams tie for second place. We were 1 game away from a 7-way tie for first, which would have been absolutely insanity. And actually, before we do that, I'm going to get Zach's thoughts first because these are the final standings as they were. Take a look at the top 2. We've got Troy 1, Marshall 2. We have Arkansas State 7. Those are the official final standings, those 3 spots. And then our prediction, before games went final, before games ever started on Friday night, last Friday, we had Troy 1, Marshall 2, Arkansas State 7. Now, we missed in between. We did miss the stuff in between, but barely. So we want to pump our tires a little bit here because we did pretty well with Zach and I trying to figure this stuff out. And I don't know. First of all, Zach, was it luck of the Irish here a little bit with that? Or we kind of knew what we were doing to some extent, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm still a little bit confused on the whole tiebreaker situation. I think everyone is. I think after the final game went final last Friday, I think everyone was kind of just throwing out there what they think the tiebreakers are, and every single person had a different one. So it was a little bit of luck, but yeah, it's definitely crazy. I've never seen a 6-way tie for any spot, let alone for such a high spot, second place.
Yeah, absolutely. And then to note, that's the part that's not included in the conference. Marshall, Coastal, App, and Texas State also, obviously this doesn't have a bearing on the standings, but also finished 19-12, all 4 of them. So, you got the same conference record, the same overall record. So there's got 4 very equal teams within that. TJ, I know you said you wanted to share some specific thoughts on this tiebreaker itself, or maybe how it went down. I don't know. I want you to elaborate on your thoughts there.
No, I mean, first of all, tiebreaker is one of the most fun parts about this job, like diving into the verbiage and trying to figure out, okay, who beat who, where, and, what tiebreaker is in effect in this situation. Kara Ritchie, she covers the Arkansas State Red Wolves. She did a phenomenal job before I even got a chance to dive into it. I was going to put out a video for the syndicate, and she beat me to it, and she did a fantastic job sort of justifying the tiebreakers, and she was spot on, and I believe was confirmed that those were the tiebreaker and the order of tiebreakers. It is confusing, but it is everything kind of worked out and played out the way that it was written at the beginning of the season. In terms of people are, especially Jonesboro, Arkansas. I sympathize for you guys because 11-7, you're tied with Marshall. Marshall's the 2 seed. They have 3 games to play, and for a chance at the Sun Belt title. And you guys have the same record. You have more wins overall, and you guys are down to the 7 seed and now have to play 5. But I gotta say, the thing that I kind of want to talk about is a lot of people are blaming the bracket for this, and it's not the bracket. I'm gonna defend the bracket here. I mean, you're talking about tiebreakers. That's what got Arkansas State to where they are right now, is the tiebreakers. If you want to go after the tiebreakers, be my guest. I think that they're pretty fair, being as though they have to do with head-to-head and they have to do with combined head-to-head with common opponents and blah, blah, blah. Tiebreakers is what got Arkansas State down to 7th. And if there's a 6-way tie, someone's going to have to be last. That's just the way it is. But a lot of people going after the bracket. If you want to talk about incentivizing the regular season, incentivizing conference games, you've done it with this bracket. I think that the bracket was a change that I welcomed. I wanted to see how it played out. And I mean, you've got a conference with 7 teams that have 19 or more wins overall. That if that doesn't tell you that these guys know every single game matters, I don't know what does.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that. And I want your opinion. You've been watching and taking in basketball a lot more specifically and longer than I have. And I want your opinion on this too. And TJ, I'll follow with you. Not every team in this conference plays one another throughout the regular season. And if you have that, these tiebreakers are a lot easier to figure out, make a lot more sense, and you have direct head-to-heads all the way across the board. Zach, is that something you want to see done moving forward, or are you okay with it the way it is?
I think we talked about this a little last week, but I kind of had a private conversation with Justin Gray after one of the press conferences, and I'm not going to obviously spill all of it, but I think a thing that we both kind of agreed on is we think that every team should play everybody. And because that's just the most simple way to tie break is head to head. And I think like we mentioned, I think it's the Big Ten who does it really well. They have 18 teams in the conference. Everyone plays each other once, and then you play like your biggest 3 or 4 rivals twice, like home and home. So I think that's an interesting way to do it. And probably the way I would like to see it. But like you guys said with the bracket, for a 1-bid league, you want your best team in March. So the best way to do it is a bracket like this.
Yep. TJ, thoughts on the at least once to see everybody type of situation there?
No, I agree with that. And, the perfect, I think, case study to kind of compare the Sun Belt to is Sun Belt's a 14-team league. And prior to the most recent, tectonic shift in the power conferences, the ACC was, I believe, a 15-team league with Notre Dame. So 14 full members, and everybody played each other. If I remember correctly, 14 teams, everybody played each other once, and then you had 6 because you had to get to 20 games. So there were 6 repeats. I think that's the way to do it. You take your big rival in the ACC case, North Carolina and Duke, you're going to make sure that they play twice. You take the big time matchups, you have them play twice, randomize it however you want. But playing everybody at least once just to see where you stack up to the rest of the conference, I think that's crucial. If there's anything that anyone has to say about the tiebreakers, I think that should be a point of discussion moving forward, is everyone should play each other so that there are common opponents amongst everybody.
Yep. I 100% agree with that, and I'll equate it to NHL. Big fan of that, hockey in general. But everybody plays everybody once, home and away. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily have to happen. It just has to be a game. But then, like you guys said, you've got your division opponents within the NHL. You play them more because that's where the heat, the rivalry is, the intensity, the viewers for television, right? Like, those are the things we want to see. That's what's going to build up this conference even further. We have it for football for the most part. Not everybody can play each other in football. It's obviously not enough games in a season for that, but we almost have it in baseball. So I would love to see it come across in basketball. And again, still every game matters because the first tiebreaker ends up being people's record against USM, who ended up on the right side of this final standings, right in the bottom half of the bracket. But you had to beat them in order to kind of get yourself. I guess it was a grouping technically, right? Is it a grouping between James Madison and Southern Miss that got you into the first part of the tiebreaker, right? Is that what it was?
I have no idea.
I think it was. I think the combination of records between USM and JMU for these 6 teams that tied for second was what was the first differentiator, not just Southern Miss by itself. I think that's what I thought going in, but it was actually a combination. Again, if you want the best explanation, go watch Kara Ritchie. She's freaking brilliant before this anyway, with all her knowledge base, but she did a tremendous, what is it, like 9 minutes, TJ, I think, that she sits there and she literally writes it out.
It's a very long video. She made a comment. She was like, all right, 4 minutes in and we have the second seed. Like, that's how in depth she goes.
Yep. Yeah, but it's great. So if you do really want that explanation, there it is. Go enjoy that because she did a phenomenal job breaking it down. Oh, here, one last note for both of you. I'll start with Zach on this. Would you have liked to see the conference come out and officially either make a statement or show us a little video on how they determined the seeds, or do you not care as long as it seems to make sense?
Well, it definitely would have been nice and definitely would have maybe even helped the credibility of these tiebreakers a little bit, but I still think everyone would have been confused and complained about it. So either way, at the end of the day, I don't think it would have made too much of a difference.
TJ?
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is the tiebreakers are pretty straightforward. It just this time around, it took a lot of work to get through them, and that's, you start at the top and you go down for each seed. And then when you finally decide on whichever tiebreaker you get to, you get the 3 seed. Now for the 4 seed, you go back to the top of the list of tiebreakers and see if anything changed. That's kind of just how you do it. I don't think that any explanation was necessary, but if you want an explanation, like we said, go see Kara Ritchie because she does break it down. But another thing, just before we move on, that I'll say is, like, a lot of people hating on the bracket right now. I think we're in agreement that it's the tiebreakers, if anything, that people should be upset about. But, like, you look at this bracket and people are saying, Arkansas State finished second and they've got to play 5 games. They dropped to the 7 seed. And people are like, we need a more realistic bracket, or like a more power conference type bracket, not this battle royale that we see here, one-off games, basically March Madness light. But like, if I took the time and I looked at every single bracket and I said the tiebreakers that occur as the Sun Belt currently has them written, and I applied them to the Big East, the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big 10 tournaments, the 5 what I would call power conferences in college basketball. And A-State wouldn't play 5 games, they'd play 4. And I don't think that that's a big enough reason to say that this bracket sucks. I don't think that that's fair to the bracket. If anything, the only thing that changes is you have some of those higher seeds playing more games. So if you're talking about player safety, which somebody was in my mentions talking about player safety, you're causing more basketball to be played for the teams that actually did well and benefited from those tiebreakers. So if you want to go for the tiebreakers, go for the tiebreakers. Ask for change there, be my guest. But it's not the bracket. Right. Arkansas State had 7 losses on the season. 5 of them were by 4 points or less. If they were to pull out one of those games, they're not the 7 seed. They're not even the 2 seed. They're the 1 seed because they beat Troy. So if you want to add value or add incentive to playing your regular season games to the best of your ability, and if you want to incentivize the regular season, you've done it. You've done it with this bracket. So I hope people will take that into consideration, especially for next year. You just saw a conference go from not that exciting in men's basketball, to be completely honest with you, to now you've got 7 19-plus win teams because of how important postseason play is based on this bracket.
Yep, absolutely. Ben James chiming in saying, "What's up, Wolves up?" And hopefully A-State can make a run on both the men's and the women's side. Yeah, unfortunately, putting all this stuff together, we haven't done a women's breakdown, and we're not going to get to that before they start balling up over there. But the women's bracket shaping out pretty well as well. Kara Ritchie mentioned one more time, someone asked her if this was a good thing for Sun Belt basketball, and she said specifically towards the seeding, no, it's not, because with all these records being so close, that means no one stands out. So, and Zach and I talked about this last week a little bit, you're looking at 14, 15, 16 seed at best, right? Like, that's probably where we sit. And if Troy is the one that comes out, that's probably where we get that 14. I'd say anybody else is probably a 15 or 16. And we'll see. Maybe other things happen in other tournaments that help us elevate more than just what we can do on our own. But as I said, and you guys know, and everybody else really knows, but this is great for television. This is great for the appeal of why this tournament matters, is because you have no idea who's supposed to win this thing. I mean, your best team is 1 game better than the 6 behind them. I mean, that's insane. So this is this is going to be a fun tournament. And I have it here in a small version. We're going to open it up into something more readable and more viewer friendly here in a second. It's not as pretty, but it lets the logos shine a little bit more about where some of these teams ended up. And again, just like TJ said, we've got like the March Madness type of look here. This bracket starts big and just gets incrementally smaller. Not visually of what you're seeing here, because like I said, I wanted these logos to stand out and be a little bit more readable than what the small version, because you can only start so big on a screen and then you have to get really, really tiny. But this is the official bracket, just in a little bit different standard or look here. But yeah, again, we called Troy and Marshall 1 and 2, Zach. We did good. We called Arkansas State 7. We knew ULM was going to be 14. We weren't geniuses on that one. That one was decided for us before everything happened. But Ben's hoping for some revenge against South Al, Marshall, and Troy. And they're on the side to get it all, but they'd have to get to the championship game to take Troy down if they manage to get quite that far. All right. First games, we're not going to go through all of them, but we're going to go through the ones we know for a fact. And the first one is Tuesday, either today if you're listening to this, or possibly tomorrow if you're still up live with us now on the East Coast, or getting a little late on the Central Time. But Georgia State, listed as the away team, the number 13 seed, is going to play the Cajuns, the number 12. I don't know. Is this a toss-up game, Zach? Is this like a coin toss, or you have a heavier favorite that you're leaning on in this first one?
No, I'm 100% leaning Louisiana. Georgia State is completely just fallen off these last few weeks. They started 6-3 in the conference, I believe, and ended 7-11. They look a complete shell of themselves. And I don't know if you guys saw Trilly Donovan's coaching carousel tier list, but he put Georgia State's head coach Jonas Hayes on the trending towards out. So maybe the kind of headspace is already there. So I'm gonna lean with Louisiana.
So to me, that's going to be crazy, because like that means now Georgia State's going to go on this run where they get so far that they can't fire him. No, but yeah, TJ, thoughts on this? I mean, nothing. You don't have to get real specific. Just kind of an overarching look on who's going to be favored in this first matchup.
No, I agree with Zach. I'm leaning Louisiana as well. In the only meeting in the season, Georgia State dropped that game by 10 points. Louisiana and Georgia State kind of finished the same way. So I'm leaning Louisiana here. I don't think that Georgia State has shown enough for me to flip, a 10-point swing.
Yeah, no, that's good. We'll get into our predictions here. I'll save mine for that one. Ben had alluded to South Al earlier, and I read it because that's how he spells it, but Dalton took exception. It's just South, as they say down there in Mobile. So, yeah, this is why we love it, man. The rivalry sticks, even in the comment section of a live show. So that is the prediction so far, is that Cajuns should come out on top. And again, they are the number 12 seed. These first two games on ESPN Plus on Tuesday. Okay, again, we're only going to kind of talk about the ones that are official right now, because otherwise we got a bunch of hypotheticals. We're going to save that for our predictions that we're going to get to in a second. So Tuesday, the doubleheader, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, ULM, the number 14 seed. TJ, we're going to reverse it and start with you on this one. Is there any chance that the Warhawks can spring the upset on the number 11 ODU Monarchs?
All right, let's get real big and dramatic about this. No. Old Dominion is going to win this game. ULM, I don't want this to come across as I'm bashing the Warhawks. It's just been a tough year. And Old Dominion they've shown in stretches, in spurts this season, that they can compete with the big teams in this conference. And I just don't see ULM making it past the first day tomorrow.
Yeah, Zach. I think Zach was the one that pointed out just last week, though. Troy, ULM, 1-point game earlier this season.
Yeah, ULM has had a bunch of close games, actually, and I believe their one win is against Old Dominion, if I'm not mistaken.
Ooh.
In Norfolk, I think.
Ooh.
So this can't happen, but like I think the only way I see ULM
did I
win,
just mess this up?
the only
My
way I
bad.
see ULM winning is if like Christian Lewis goes for like 30 plus. But there's a reason Old Dominion got 2 preseason votes for first place. Like they have the talent, obviously. They've dealt with injuries and they just haven't put it all together this year. But I think anyone would be crazy if they picked ULM. Four wins and only 2 of those against Division I opponents.
Yep. 2 against D1. That's kind of crazy. But like you said, one of them is this team right here that they're going to play. So you do have to almost take a pause because now this is a one-off in a neutral site. Kind of crazy, but we'll see. I do agree. I would go with ODU there. Zach was the one who told me to lean on them instead of who'd they play last game of the season? Was it Georgia State?
Georgia State, yeah.
Georgia State.
Yeah, I was taking Georgia State, leaning on them. Zach had some insight and said, no, it's going to be ODU, and he was right. So, yeah, maybe listen to Zach here, and TJ, you also went with ODU. But I do agree. I think we might see a close game here. Shout out to the Monarchists. They are headed down for the second straight year to Pensacola. They did a little stop at a Buc-ee's that I commented on. They asked me if any of us were headed down there, but unfortunately, that is a long vacation that I cannot take. Someday, I would love to be able to take like a week off, go down there and do that. It looks like a bunch of fun. They do some live coverage from down there too. So if you want to check out the game tomorrow on 2 screens, you can watch the game on ESPN Plus and check them out because they're probably streaming live as well, talking about the game up in the stands as they did last year. So again, I'll save my prediction for the bracket looks here, but those are the first 2 games. Again, we're only going to preview those 2 because those are the ones that are known. Otherwise, we're just going to talk about predictions when we get to those. And I think is the first one up next. Yep, the first one is up next. This one starting off with Zach here. Here is his bracket as he has made it. And again, we kept it the structure where I'm spacing this out so it's easier to read. For those of you that are listening to the audio version of this, we will put these up on social so that you can go visually see these afterward. But Zach, I don't know, however you kind of want to roll through this, your reasoning, your thinking behind who you have where and why.
Yeah, I'll quickly go through the top. We already went through the first round. Obviously, you see I got JMU going on quite a run. They finished the season super hot. They got a few guys who can really fill it up, especially Cliff Davis, who's come on big towards the end of the season. So I have them beating Southern Miss, and then Texas State. Texas State is 16-1 at home, 3-11 away from home, either away or neutral. So I'm going to stick with JMU. I'm gonna go with App just because I think they're good. They're big, they're physical, and Coach Kearns is a friend of the show, so I'm gonna stick with them. And then I got Troy getting to the championship. Just think they're too good. They got a lot of experience from a team that went to a national championship or national tournament game last year, even though not a lot of starters, but a lot of those bench guys. And then the bottom, Georgia Southern, I got over Arkansas State over Old Dominion, kind of keeping that momentum over Marshall at the end of the year. And then I got Arkansas State going on a little bit of a run. That Arkansas State South Alabama game was the toughest game to pick for me. It's just kind of just like a coin flip, but South Alabama beat them twice in the regular season. It's hard to beat a team 3 times, like they say. So I'm going to go with Arkansas State there. And then I got Coastal getting revenge. They blew a 7-point lead in under 2 minutes in the regular season against Arkansas State. And then, like I said, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, but I got them doing it. Coastal doing it over Marshall without 7-4 Matt Van Komen. That defense has been really bad. And I think I forget what analytic website it is, but they've since his injury, they're analytically the 10th best team in the conference.
Wow.
So I don't like the way they're trending. And then I think I mentioned last week when we kind of had like a little bracket prediction type thing that I liked Coastal's matchup over Troy just because size and athleticism. And then I think Coastal's going to be a little pissed off. Justin Gray didn't. We'll get to it, but he didn't win Coach of the Year. I think that's going to fire up him and the boys. And then the last press conference of the season, Justin Gray and Josh Beadle both said, "Hey, we have no pressure going into Pensacola. We were picked 13th. Like, no one believes in us. Like, we're going to have no pressure." So I think they're just going to come out with something to prove.
Nice. Okay, I got one question for you. Back on that top part of the bracket. App State and Troy played once already this year, and App State won that game handily. Was there any concern or thought that in a one-game situation where Troy's coming in cold from a longer break and App gets that warm-up game against JMU, if they make it out of there, that could kind of even that game or favor App yet again? Or you just think the Troy rest will help them in that situation?
I mean, yeah, we saw it last year. The 3 and the 4 were the championship game last year. So sitting that long does kind of hurt a little bit in a way. But and I did almost pick App just because they're also just a lot bigger, a lot more physical. Like, we don't know if Theo Sang for Troy is going to be available. It wasn't available for large stretch down the stretch. But I'm just kind of leaning on experience and just overall quality with like guys like Thomas Dowd and the Cooper brothers and Victor Valdez.
Yeah. Victor Valdez, very, very solid player. We'll see his name a lot in one or two games that Troy will definitely be in here. I think I put myself next, TJ. So unless you want to jump, do you want to go next? You want me to go last?
Ahead. Go ahead. Your show, man.
Oh, man. All right. So I'm flipping the script. It's a tournament. Anything can happen. Georgia State over the Cajuns in the first round. I saved that little surprise because I knew it was coming. You guys didn't. But, yeah, I'm going there. ODU over ULM. I think ODU playing hot looked pretty good in that Georgia State game. I favor them to get past ULM, even though we now know, what happened earlier this season and what ULM could be capable of. I got ODU continuing past Georgia Southern as well. I saw Georgia Southern early this season. Thought that they could look the part to be towards the top of this conference for sure towards the end. Maybe I put too much weight in how they looked against Georgia Tech early in the season because Georgia Tech hasn't turned out to be all that great either. But I think ODU kind of keeps this hot string rolling. We know what basketball means to ODU, right? They're packing out stadiums even in their down years. I think they're going to have some type of traveling fan base. As I said, the Monarchists are going down there. I'd expect other ODU fans to get down there. I think that's going to help favor them. I'm not sure where Georgia Southern fans are sitting about, going to Pensacola to see this with them having the 10 seed. I don't think ODU fans care. I think they're going to go try and see their team play some basketball. On the top part, Georgia State versus JMU, I think that's where the run ends for the Panthers. JMU just too hot here at the end of the season. Then we've got Southern Miss, JMU. This one, it's Elite Weeks. I'm just going to say he's going to overcome deficiencies from the rest of the Golden Eagles and get them past James Madison. James Madison, again, as Zach said, I just said, maybe getting hot at the right time, but also a little inconsistent throughout the season. I think in a one-off game, they're not sharp. Southern Miss could take them out, so that's what I'm going to lean on. Arkansas State, ODU, that's where ODU's run ends for me. Arkansas State's going to come into this thing, like Zach said previously with Coastal, a little pissed off that they've ended up with the 7th seed and have to prove so much here. And I'll stick with them and say South Alabama, probably not that different, right? Like they kind of feel like in the same boat. They should be in second in some regards that they're thinking, but they're in 6th. So I think they get past them. And then they match up with Coastal, but back up at the top, Texas State, Southern Miss. Again, Texas State, not great on the road, but I also don't know how long I would trust Southern Miss, so I'm going to take Texas State. Again, I'm going a little craziness in this bracket. The one off with App State, I think App State gets some retribution for that last loss that could have put them into a tie for first place with Troy. So I have App State moving on. Then we'll go back down to South Alabama and Coastal. South gets by Coastal. Chase Harris. I know Josh Beadle's over there with Coastal too. And now you guys have started to win me over with Coastal, so dang you. But I've already made my pick, and I'll stick with it. So I'm going to go with South Al there. That would match them up with Marshall. Even without Van Komen, I think Marshall shoots the three a little bit better than South Alabama does. If South Alabama now on their third game at this point, or no, I guess it would just be their second game. I don't know. Is it a third?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
three
right.
logos
Okay, so,
up there.
Yeah, you're right. Third game in 3 days. Marshall gets it done. I don't know how or why. I'm just going to pick it. All right, App State, Troy. Look, Troy got embarrassed by App State earlier this season. And as Zach said, they've got the veteran leadership, the presence of a coach who's been there and done that before, got to the dance last year. But I think App State gets it done again. I mean, that wasn't even a close game. I don't know what about the matchup works so well for App, but I see it happening again. So now you've got an App State Marshall final. But I also watched App State all year, and they let go of games they shouldn't. They also got beat by Marshall twice. So I would favor Marshall to take home the championship in this one. So, hey, you guys got a kind of green team. I picked a kind of green team. It's kind of the same, right?
Somewhat.
All right. So that was my long drawn out one. TJ, now it's your turn.
So once again, you see the two Coastal guys picking Coastal. I understand. I completely understand the feelings that you guys have. I understand. But let's start from the bottom. We'll start with the top of the bracket, actually. Raging Cajuns against Georgia State. I already said I just like Louisiana in that game. When they take on JMU, though, I think JMU goes on a bit of a run here. You're going to notice this entire bracket, it's runs, and it's where these teams currently sit, how they finished the season. So JMU, they beat Louisiana, they beat Southern Miss, and then they get to Texas State. And I think that Texas State is just going to go on a tear here. I think they go all the way to the championship. I am kind of, I'm looking at it now, Troy and Marshall, the two top seeds, I don't have either one of them winning a game. And I think that it has a lot to do with the fact that I take a lot of, value, or I see a lot of value in playing at least one game prior to, you basically have to play one and then you're in the championship. I think that does more harm than good. You really have to stay on top of your stuff. And that's not to say that Troy doesn't just blow this bracket up and win the entire thing. I would not be surprised to see Troy win, but I just like where Texas State is right now. So I have them going to the championship. Bottom side of the bracket, ODU goes on a little bit of a run, beating ULM, I think, handily, and then taking care of Georgia Southern. Then you get to Arkansas State. And I think that the storyline is there. Arkansas State, they finish second in the conference along with 5 other teams, and they get the what end of the stick. It's just an unfortunate break for Arkansas State, and I think that they go on a bit of a run here. They beat ODU, they beat South, and kind of like how Zach, you said that South and Arkansas State was your toughest game to pick. Mine was this one against Coastal, because you've got two teams that are in very similar spots. Coastal is right now, the second half of the season was tremendous for the Chanticleers. They won 11 of their final 14 games. I mean, that is it's probably the best run that Coastal's ever had as a program. I just think that they run into Coastal at the wrong time here. So Coastal ends up getting that win. They beat Marshall as well. And then you got Texas State and Coastal Carolina. I love what Justin Gray's doing with the program in Conway. I love what I'm seeing from the guys. Josh Beadle is a dog. They've got 2 or 3 other guys that can drop 30 on you on any given night. So I really like Coastal Carolina to win the Sun Belt tournament, with a caveat. If Arkansas State beats Coastal Carolina, I've got Arkansas State as my champion. I just think it's there. everyone's making all this noise about, oh, they got to play 5 games. They got to play 5 games. NC State in 2024 had to win 5 games in order to steal a bid in the ACC tournament. They ended up in the Final Four. I think that storylines matter, especially in college basketball. So if it's not like that game right there, Arkansas State and Coastal, that's going to determine who your champion is.
I like it. And I hate that my pick was not Coastal now.
I mean, we couldn't not pick.
We need some
Coastal.
parity.
Like, we could not pick Coastal. This is like the first time ever they've been in a position like this.
True.
That's the other thing. Cinderella runs belong to the Chanticleers. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I'm just looking forward to craziness because that's what we get this time of year. And we also get postseason awards, which obviously postseason isn't over, but as we get into postseason, Zach, I want you to go off here, man. These are mostly your picks, but obviously some of them do match what the conference has put out. So tell us how you came to these decisions and, whether you disagree with some of these decisions that the conference made.
Yeah, so player of the year, Chase Harris, that's who the Sun Belt had. Like, this guy's been unbelievable. He's averaging 19, 5, and 5 for South Alabama, and he's not shooting threes, and he's a guard. Like, he's 3 for 23 from deep this year, and he's averaging 19 points. It's really impressive. Defensive player of the year, I went with Matt Van Komen from Marshall. He's averaging almost 3 blocks a game. And since he's been injured, that Marshall defense has just been really bad, like really bad. You can put up, like, it's almost a guarantee whoever plays him is going to score 80. So I think he's just such a big presence down low that I had to go with him. I'm surprised he didn't win it. Newcomer of the year, I went with Chase Harris as well, just because obviously he's a transfer this year, but I know they don't like to do 2 players or the one player getting 2 awards. So I would have went Tyleek Weeks if that was the case. Freshman of the year, DJ Hall. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I believe he's the only freshman averaging double digits, and he's the leading scorer and rebounder for Texas State.
Nice.
I'll go 6th man of the year. I'll go Joey Chama. He's the only guy coming off the bench that's averaging double digits, and when I saw him in Conway, he's just everywhere on both ends of the court. And then here's the one that I think a lot of people have had a little bit of a disagreement with, which is Coach of the Year. And I'm honestly quite surprised that it was not Justin Gray. This is not to discount anything that Scott Cross has done. He's an unbelievable coach. He's a great guy. He's going to get a big-time job this year, next year. But this is his 5th year in a row with 20 wins, and he barely got to 20 this year. And he got to 20 by beating ULM on the last night of the year. Justin Gray was picked to finish 13th in the conference this year, finished 13th last year, and has the program winning their most games since joining the Sun Belt, and the first time they've won 19 regular season games since joining the Sun Belt, and they finished tied for 2nd. Only a game behind Troy, both overall and in the conference. So this man has done like wonders. I don't think anyone could have guessed Coastal sitting at 3rd in the conference in the preseason. So I'm quite surprised that he wasn't Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I think you got a great argument for what you just said there. And honestly, I'll be honest, like even at the beginning of the season, after a couple games in, I didn't know if Coastal was going to end up towards the top of this conference. I thought, it's too early to tell, obviously, but you're like, is it all that different or all that much better than last year? It sure as hell was. I mean, like you said, you just gave us all the examples there, and I think that guy is proven his worth. And when they brought him in, I know, Zach, you said, and I'm pretty sure TJ was even saying too, like, I'm excited about this guy, like his pedigree of where he comes from, what he's done at Western Carolina. And yeah, it took a year, sure, but it's going to do that sometimes, especially when guys are leaving and you're having to flip a whole roster. Ben's even shouting out the coach over there at Arkansas State, Pannone. Is that how you pronounce that? Anyone help me with that?
Yeah.
Pannone.
With what he had to come into Jonesboro and complete new roster, coaching staff, tremendous accomplishment. When he said, also true. Also true. But I think a lot of people are going to put a little bit more weight on the fact that Arkansas State was kind of at this point last year. And maybe they should have done that with Scott Cross, like you said. at this point, is it not an expectation that Scott Cross teams get to 20 wins? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean he's any worse of a coach. It just means like this is kind of what we expect from him. We don't necessarily expect this from Justin Gray just yet, but he's obviously overcome a lot of what was shown. TJ, your thoughts, because I know, you're a guy who was talking about him as well once they made the hire last year.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about coach of the year for just about every conference, I mean, this is one of the easier awards to pick. It's usually one of two things. It's either A, the most wins in the conference, the most dominant team, or B, it's a guy who's overcome expectations or has, nobody expected anything from Coastal Carolina. They're currently the 3 seed in the tournament, tied for second overall. There's an argument, I think, to be made that with how competitive the top half of the conference was, that just having the most wins isn't enough to win that award. That being said, Troy lost, 11 games total on the season, 6 in conference, and the 6 in conference games. I mean, you've got, let's just go down the list. Arkansas State's an 8-point loss in the 4th game in Sun Belt play. Then they win 5 straight. Then they lose back-to-backs, 9-point loss to James Madison and a 22-point loss to App State. They lose by 12 points to Texas State. They lose by 4 points to Southern Miss. And their final loss of the season came in the third to last game, 65-54 to South. I mean, like, when you look at who this team has beaten and who they've split with, and, the one-offs that Troy either won or lost, like, it's a dominant Troy team. It's a Scott Cross team. I think that the story, and once again, Coastal Carolina alum here, there's bias for sure. You can call out bias and I won't be offended. That's a better storyline, though. The guy picked 13th to finish second. I don't know if I agree with it. But at the end of the day, Scott Cross coached a hell of a basketball team this year, and he's just as deserving as anybody else to win this award.
Yeah, I think that's probably the fairest argument, is that you could have picked out of a hat for the top 4, 5, 6 coaches in this conference, because they all did good jobs, and none of them were head and shoulders above the rest, right? Like, if you had a bunch of clutch victories at the very end of the game, then you can point to that one guy and be like, hey, his coaching decisions made that team go. But you have enough of those that went the other way for all these teams. So it's like, there's not any great differentiator. I'm leaning toward Justin Gray because, like what you guys just said, I mean, this guy's predicted him and his team to be at the bottom, and he got him to the top. Not the very top, but just as close as everybody else except for Troy. I mean, like, if that's the difference, again, to me, I expect this out of Scott Cross. What is this, his 5th season, is what you said, Zach?
Yep.
And again, that's maybe a bad thing for him, that I don't expect him to win this award. That's not to mean that we don't think he's a great coach. He's probably the best coach in this conference when you break it down, with consistency and with roster changes and everything else. And here's another shout out. Richie Riley has brought in a new team and won 20 games 2 years in a row. And he didn't get enough credit last year, but I think, was he named the coach of the year last year? Was that Scott Cross then too? I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, I feel like it was Scott. I'd have to look back.
Yeah. I can't remember, but I know that they were 2 of the teams that were tied for, the number 1 overall seed. So I can't remember if maybe Richie got that award. I want to say he did. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there, but I want to say that he was the one who won Coach of the Year last year.
Richie Riley won last year.
Okay. So yeah. And again, we know the Sun Belt doesn't like to name like 2 players to the same award. Maybe they don't like to have the same coach 2 years in a row, but Richie Riley could have won this award too. I mean, there's a number of guys, but I do think Justin Gray's got the greatest argument. And I think we'll leave it at that because we're all kind of hindering on that one. But we're going to move on to the Sun Belt first team as picked by Mr. Zac Capps himself. So run us through this roster that you've put together here.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's pretty close to similar to the actual one. Josh Beadle, obviously he's averaging 18 points for Coastal, and he's been really clutch. Had a few 30-point games, and is quite literally the reason why they won 11 games in conference, because he's hit a few buzzer beaters or game winners. Chase Harris, I think we talked about him being player of the year. Obviously, he had to be first team. Tyleek Weeks, he's averaging like close to 20 points for Southern Miss. Like if Southern Miss didn't have him, I don't know where they would be. They would be down towards the very bottom of the conference. And then Thomas Dowd, best team in the conference. He's been the best player. He's averaging a double-double. Could have been defensive player of the year with the numbers that he's putting up there. And then the one that I had different was Jalen Spear. They had Wyatt Fricks, same team, actually the same team. But I just went with Jalen Spear just because he's shown a little bit more consistency, and it has been a little bit better down the stretch.
Nice. I like the reasoning for that. How close were you to putting Kristen Lewis in there? Just by like the fact that he's a good player, not necessarily obviously the great team at ULM, but as a player goes. I mean, were you close? Did you think about it?
Not for first team, no.
Okay.
If I would have had like a second or a third team, I definitely would consider him. And I'm kind of surprised that he didn't make like the third team, just because I know his team was so bad, but like without him, they might have won 0 games and been like the worst team in like Division I history. So like this guy, like I said, he can put up 30 on any given night, and he's a big reason why they won their 4 games. So just because their team is so bad, I wouldn't consider him first team, but like maybe like a third team, I definitely would have had him on there.
Yeah, and just so that people understand where I'm coming from with that, Chase Harris, 18.9 points per game average. Tyleek Weeks, 18.8. Kristen Lewis, 18.1. Nobody else was touching 18. So he's up there in the top 3, even on one of the worst teams in the conference. One of the worst teams, honestly, in NCAA basketball this season, because 2 of their 4 wins, as we talked about before, were Division I, and the other ones were what? NA? Were they both NAIA, Zach? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember exactly, but definitely not Division I.
Yeah, definitely not, because they're the teams that show up on the scoreboard on ESPN that don't even have a logo beside their name, because they just don't get on there enough. But yeah, just wanted to give him a shout out, because sometimes really good players are on bad teams and they don't quite get the shine. I do agree with you, probably not a first team selection, but I wanted to know if you had thought about it, because he does stand out tremendously on that team still. TJ, any guys specifically either on this list or otherwise that you want to talk about here? I know, and by the way, we only did the first team because obviously the conference is going to cover the rest, but we wanted to give Zach his call outs for the guys he wanted to recognize for this.
No, I mean, there's nobody else that I really want to shout out. I mean, I'll shout out DJ Hall. He's on the second team for the official Sun Belt awards. DJ Hall had a tremendous season. He was the freshman of the year as well on both Zach's list and Sun Belt's list. The only thing that I'll bring up about these guys is last year there was only one award winner or team honoree that remained in the Sun Belt for this season. And that guy's name was Richie Riley, head coach of South Alabama. Like, these guys all won awards last year, and then they either graduated or they left for greener pastures. And I think that that's going to end up being the next step for the Sun Belt. Like, Keith Gill's going to have to figure out a way for these guys getting recognized. This isn't like a list of, potential stepping to the next level up to the high majors to go get some bench minutes on a blue blood. This is the next step for the Sun Belt, is retaining these guys, because these guys are tremendous. This was an ultra competitive league. You had a bunch of guys stand out. Now let's see how many of them stick around and see how the Sun Belt stands in year 2 of, after last year, what happened and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it will be interesting to see what goes on there, because I don't want to see it happen again. because I feel like that really hindered at least the start of this season, right? Like the expectations and the excitement going in is like, I don't even know who's on my roster. I don't know who's on my team. And we had a little bit of that with football, but I feel like football gets so much attention that you kind of quickly figure all those things out. Basketball, not necessarily the same in that regard, so it's harder to see and look at. Just wanted to go over some statistics real quick. On playoffstatus.com, Troy has a 29% chance to win the Sun Belt Championship. Marshall is not second. Y'all Chanticleers are second at 25%. Marshall isn't up there until 14% of chance to win the championship. Everybody else is below 10%. So those three teams, statistically, for the stat people in the background crunching numbers, are your best chances. Troy, Coastal, and Marshall. If you're going to put some money on the line, have some betting interest, you just want to talk some trash, those are your best three choices statistically when you're crunching the numbers in the background. So do with that as you will. But I think that's going to about wrap it up. I mean, guys, we got any news or notes left on this tournament before it gets going tomorrow? I guess tomorrow afternoon, really, 5 o'clock Eastern start. That's pretty early.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just, like I said at the top of the show, if the season is any indication of how this tournament's going to go, I cannot wait to watch. This is Sun Belt moving in the right direction. I love everything that I saw this year, and now we get to see the madness for the second year with the new bracket. So very excited for what Pensacola has in store.
Same here. Some point we're all going to get down there and take this in. For like a week, we're going to take off work, enjoy the sun, enjoy the beach days before the basketball. We're going to do a show called Beach and Basketball. There you go. So
works for me.
Yeah, pina coladas and virgin pina coladas and wink, wink, hint, hint. All right, fellas, this was awesome. Hopefully everybody tunes in tomorrow night as this journey starts. Again, I like to call this kind of the Mortal Kombat tournament because it's win or go home. There is no second chances. There's no losers bracket and moving on. It's just straight to the end and a battle to the finish. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check us out along the way at syndicatesports.io. See some of Zach's good writing over there, especially on the basketball side of things. And we will see you guys soon. Maybe we'll do some pop-up basketball tournament shows. I don't know. We'll just kind of go with how it lands, right?
Yeah, we'll do maybe some Twitter Spaces. Those did well during Omaha, so
true.
See what happens.
True. Yeah, we'll see you guys soon. So just be on the lookout for more stuff from Sunbelt Syndicate and enjoy the basketball tournament down there in Pensacola. See y'all later.